Well, joining us now to talk a little bit more about this is Rotna Begum, women's rights researcher for Middle East. And Rotna, thanks very much for talking to us this evening. What do you make of this case? Rafa Kanoun says there is a real threat to her life, that she will be killed the moment she steps out and back to Saudi Arabia, and she's hiding in that hotel room.
Unfortunately, this is not the first time that we have seen a case of a Saudi woman fleeing her family and being in a third country and being forcibly returned. So we are incredibly concerned that, in fact, we might be seeing her being forcibly returned back to her family in Saudi Arabia. Right now, Rahaf is incredibly scared. She's hiding in a hotel room. She's barricaded her doors. She's trying to prevent the Thai authorities from gaining access to a room and forcibly returning her. Now, there is a reason for that. I mean, frankly speaking, we've seen the case of Dina Ali Lazloum from April 2017, who was bound and forcibly put on a plane to be returned to Kuwait, where her family was, and then subsequently to Saudi Arabia, because she was also fleeing her family, and she was in the Philippines, also transiting in order to get to Australia, the same as what Rahaf is claiming that she was trying to do.
Right. But now, of course, we're hearing that Thai authorities have said they will not be deporting her back to Saudi Arabia. But what is legally possible for her now, and how can Thai authorities cooperate and help?
We are hearing mixed messages from the Thai officials. One message is that they will not deport her. Another message is that they will return her to her Saudi family, that they're claiming that this is a family problem, that she is a child. This is an 18-year-old Saudi woman. She's turning 19 in March. She is an adult. She's able to make her own decision. Every person has a right to leave their own home country. That is what she has tried to do. But the problem is that the Thai officials are now potentially putting her at risk by possibly deporting her to Saudi Arabia to her family. The biggest risks to her include that her family may commit violence against her, which is what she has claimed that has already happened to her, that she could be charged for parental disobedience for having run away from home, because any woman in Saudi Arabia, doesn't matter how old you are, can be considered to be disobedient under what's known as a male guardianship system, in which a woman has to submit to her male guardian. She has to have a male guardian, whether it's a brother, father, husband, or even son, and who makes crucial life decisions for her.
Right. But Rotna, can she be transferred to another country? Can she get refugee status by the UN? What are the options for her?
We understand that UNHCR, the UN body responsible for refugees, is trying to negotiate access to Rahaf. Now, what the refugee UN body can do is recognize her as a refugee. They cannot provide her with asylum, but they can recognize her as a refugee.
French women on Sunday marched in Paris to reclaim the Yellow Vest movement from violent activists a day after protesters smashed their way into a government ministry. This is a protest that threatens the presidency of Emmanuel Macron, but in a chance from violent outbursts that saw buildings and vehicles set on fire for a month, the women protesters kept it largely peaceful, where they waved yellow balloons and pushed prams. Protests were also seen in the east, central and northwestern part of France. The women sang the national anthem of France as they gathered on the steps of the city's opera house before marching through nearby streets. Women demonstrators came shortly after France's economy minister called for an end to the Yellow Vest unrest. The Yellow Vest movement that was initially triggered by anger over an increase in fuel taxes has since morphed into a campaign against high cost of living and President Emmanuel Macron's government. His government is seen by many as arrogant and obliged to the rich and powerful.
Moi, j'ai une petite fille de 8 ans, je travaille. J'ai eu des moments difficiles, mais je travaille et je ne peux pas finir mes fins de mois. Pourtant, je n'ai pas des goûts de luxe. Je demande juste à réussir à payer mes factures et manger correctement. Et même ça, c'est plus possible aujourd'hui et c'est de pire en pire. Donc, il était temps que vraiment les gens s'unissent.
Saturday saw 50,000 protesters turn up on the streets of Paris, and there were clashes where a car and several motorbikes were torched. Police arrested 35 people. And Alina is now joining us from Paris for the very latest on the Yellow Vest protests, and they have, of course, been violent for 8 straight weeks. Yesterday, we saw 50,000 people on the streets, Alina, but that's sort of changed today with these women protesting in a peaceful manner. Tell us about these recent protests.
Saturday, there were 50,000 people who took to the streets across France, about 3,000 here in Paris, and there were, as you said, some limited violent incidents, but not on the same scale as we saw back in November and December. The videos that have gone viral, particularly from Saturday, is one of a professional boxer who was once the lightweight champion of France attacking police on a bridge outside the Musée d'Orsay. He's just handed himself into police this morning after a 48-hour manhunt for him. And there was also a very well publicised incident in Toulon in the south of France where a policeman who received the Legion of Honour just a few days ago was filmed violently attacking protesters in the street. Now yesterday, Sunday, there was, as you said, a women's march here in central Paris which aims to draw attention to the other aims of the Yellow Vests movement, which are really a long way away from what those people who are attacking the police deliberately, violently in the street seek to achieve. So those women demonstrators really were seeking to underline the peaceful nature of their movement, to distance themselves from those who have been violent, but also to complain about what they say has been brutality on the part of the police.
Right, Alina, so in any which way the protests have continued for so many weeks now, and how does this pan out for the French government? Are they seeing any light at the end of the tunnel? Will there be a resolution to this finally?
Well, the government's plan is to launch what they're calling a national consultation, which is supposed to allow people to come forward with their own suggestions and to allow public debate in town hall across France, which should eventually lead to further legislative measures. Of course, President Macron took some in December, most notably a rise in the minimum wage, but as we've seen, it hasn't really contributed to helping calm the protests. So he's trying to consult the people to find out what they would really like to see next. We'll find out some more about exactly what form that consultation will take in the next week or so. But of course, the problem with the Yellow Vests is that they don't really trust any institutions, particularly not the government. So despite the government's efforts to create a public debate in which they can participate, that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll trust it sufficiently to actually take part. And of course, it creates the risk that it could be quite easily hijacked by fringe interest groups who are trying to promote a particular cause, but who don't really represent the Yellow Vests.
The Indian Cabinet has given its approval for the controversial Citizenship Amendment Bill 2016 in the proposed bill, religious minorities, which in this case refers to Hindus, Buddhists, Jains and Christians, Parsis and Zoroastrians from India's neighbouring countries such as Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, who are fleeing from persecution, will be granted Indian citizenship through the process of naturalization after they have spent 6 years in India. The ruling BJP is keen on getting the bill passed, and even the Prime Minister, who has spoken on the issue in some of his election campaign rallies, has said that his government will try and get the bill passed in the Lok Sabha. A joint parliamentary committee to which the Citizenship Amendment Bill had been referred to in August 2016 after it had been discussed in the lower house of Parliament in India. Now the bill stems from the poll promise which the BJP had made in the lead up to 2014 general elections, in which it had promised to give reservations to Hindus who face persecution in India's neighbourhood. However, the BJP is expected to face stiff opposition from its own allies such as the Shiv Sena and the Assam Gana Parishad, who have opposed the bill. In fact, the Assam Gana Parishad has threatened to walk out of the alliance from the Saffron Party if the bill is passed. As the winter session ends tomorrow, it is unlikely that the bill will be tabled in the Lok Sabha tomorrow. The Citizenship Amendment Bill is considered controversial as it proposes to give citizenship on the basis of religion and curiously bars minorities of the Muslim community fleeing persecution in India's neighbourhood from applying for citizenship in India.